Here's something that will bug you a little. The person with messy spending habits, the one who buys too much coffee, orders takeout on a Tuesday for no reason, can end up richer than the disciplined saver who never spends a dime out of place. Yes, really? If that saver never invests, the careless spender who invests even a little can pull ahead. Feels backwards, right? We're taught that saving is the safe move and spending is the risky one. But there's a bigger money mistake hiding underneath all of this. It's not about spending too much. It's not even about not saving enough. It's something almost everyone does quietly every single month without knowing it's costing them anything at all. And I'd bet you're doing it right now. Let's name it the idle money trap. This is the belief that not spending money is the same as growing money. It isn't. When your savings just sit there in a checking account, in a jar, in a savings account earning almost nothing, they aren't safe. They're slowly losing value. Prices go up every year. Your money's buying power quietly shrinks, even while the number on your screen stays the same or grows just a little. On top of that, you're missing out on all the growth that money could have earned somewhere else. That's a hidden cost, and most people never see it because nothing dramatic happens. No alert, no warning, just quiet loss year after year. In this video, I'll show you exactly how much this safe habit has probably already cost you. The real number, not a scare tactic. Then I'll show you what to do instead, so your money finally starts working as hard as you do. So let's slow down and really look at this thing. The idle money trap is simple to describe, but sneaky in real life. It's what happens when you keep money sitting in a regular checking account or a savings account that pays almost nothing. And you tell yourself this is the responsible choice. You didn't spend it. You didn't waste it on anything silly. It's just there, safe, waiting. Except it's not really waiting. It's leaking. Here's the part nobody tells you. Money that sits still loses value. Every year, prices creep up. A basket of groceries that cost you $50 last year costs a little more this year. That's inflation, and it doesn't ask permission. It just quietly eats away at what your money can actually buy. So if your savings are earning close to 0% interest and prices are climbing 3 or 4% a year, your money is shrinking in real terms. The number on the screen might look the same, but what that number can buy you keeps getting smaller. Now compare that to overspending. When someone overspends, it's loud. You see it? The balance drops. The credit card bill shows up. It hurts right away. So you notice it, and maybe you fix it. The idle money trap doesn't work like that. It's quiet. There's no bill. There's no red flag. Your balance might even go up a tiny bit each month because you keep adding to it. So it feels like you're winning, but you're not gaining as much as you think because inflation is taking a bite you can't see. And on top of that, you're missing out on growth your money could have earned somewhere else. That second part matters just as much. Every year your money sits idle instead of invested. It's not just losing a little value to inflation. It's also missing out on the growth it could have had. Money that gets invested has a chance to grow over time. Money that just sits there does not. So the cost isn't only what you lose. It's also what you never got the chance to gain. Put those two things together, inflation quietly shrinking your money and missed growth quietly stacking up, and you get a slow leak. Not dramatic, not obvious, but real. And it adds up over years without you ever noticing a single moment where something went wrong. That's the whole trap. It feels like discipline. It feels like the safe, smart choice. But functionally, it behaves the same way overspending does. Both drain your wealth over time. The only real difference is speed and how loud the damage is. Overspending shouts. The idle money trap whispers. And whispers are easy to ignore right up until you add up what it costs you. Let's pull up the receipts because this isn't a hunch. This is decades of plain, boring numbers. Go back to the 1990s. Savings accounts were paying somewhere around 2 to 3% a year, which sounds decent until you notice inflation was sitting in that same 2 to 3% range too. So even in a good decade for savers, cash was barely keeping up. It wasn't gaining ground. It was jogging in place. Now fast forward to the 2010s. Interest rates on savings accounts dropped to almost nothing, often 0.1%, sometimes even less. Meanwhile, inflation kept its usual slow crawl of around 2% a year. That gap doesn't sound huge on paper, but stretch it across 10 years, and your money quietly lost a meaningful chunk of what it could actually buy, even though the number in your account never went down. Then look at 2021 and 2022. Inflation jumped hard, climbing past 7, 8, even 9% in some months. Savings accounts, as usual, barely moved. Most banks were still paying under 1% while prices on groceries, gas, and rent shot up around them. That gap wasn't small. That was one of the sharpest years of real value loss for cash sitting idle in decades. Here's the pattern if you zoom out across all of it. Savings rates rarely keep pace with inflation. Not in the calm years, not in the wild years. Every decade has its own version of the same story. Prices climb steadily, and the interest banks pay you crawls along far behind it. The years where savings actually beat inflation are rare, small, and short-lived. They're the exception, not the rule. So when someone says cash quietly loses value over time, they're not being dramatic. They're describing the normal pattern of the last 30-plus years, decade after decade, almost without exception. It's not the crisis years that do the most damage either. It's the ordinary, forgettable years piling on top of each other for a decade or two, while your account balance looks stable and safe. None of this means savings accounts are bad. You need one. Emergencies happen, and having cash you can grab fast matters. The issue isn't the account itself. The issue is expecting that account to grow your wealth when history keeps showing year after year that it mostly just holds your money still while everything around it gets more expensive. That's the quiet math almost nobody sits down and does, and it's exactly why this trap catches so many careful, responsible people without them ever noticing. Let's make this real with two people. Careful Chidi and Imperfect Ifeoma. Chidi does everything right. He budgets carefully. He almost never overspends. Every month, he saves $500 and he puts every single dollar into a regular savings account because that feels safe. Over 20 years, Chidi saves $500 a month without fail. That adds up to $120,000 of his own money put in. His account pays him close to nothing in real growth. So after 20 years, once you factor in inflation quietly nibbling away at it, his money is worth close to what he put in, maybe even a little less in real terms. He did everything he was told to do, and he's still barely broke even. Now look at Ifeoma. She's not as careful. She spends a bit more than she probably should. Some months she only manages to save and invest $300 instead of $500. She orders food when she's tired. She's not perfect, and she'd be the first to admit it. But here's the difference. Whatever she does save, she invests instead of letting it sit still. Let's say she invested in something simple like an index fund that averages around 7% a year over time, which is a normal long-term average, not a lucky guess. Even putting in less than Chidi month after month, her money isn't just sitting there. It's growing, and it's growing on top of itself year after year. That's the part people underestimate. Growth on growth adds up slowly at first and then a lot faster later on. By year 10, Ifeoma is already closing the gap with Chidi, even though she put in less money overall. By year 15, she's pulled roughly even. And by year 20, she's noticeably ahead of him, sometimes by tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the exact numbers. Chidi put in more of his own money and ends up with less. Ifeoma put in less of her own money and ends up with more. That's the crossover point. It's not magic, and it's not luck. It's just what happens when one person's money grows and the other person's money sits still. Chidi's discipline wasn't wasted exactly. He deserves credit for saving it all. But saving alone, without investing, quietly capped how far his money could go. Ifeoma's habits weren't perfect. But because her money was working the whole time, her imperfect habits still beat his perfect one. This is the whole point. It's not about being flawless with money. It's about not letting your money sit idle while you wait to be flawless. Here's the question worth asking. If this trap costs people so much money, why doesn't anyone notice it happening? The answer is simple, and it's not because people are careless. It's because the idle money trap is designed by nature to feel like a win. Think about what happens when you check your savings account. The number goes up. You added money last month, so this month it's higher. That feels good. Your brain reads that as progress. Line goes up, good things are happening, nothing to worry about here. There's no red flag. There's no warning message. There's no visible moment where you lost anything. Compare that to a bad purchase. If you spend too much on something, you feel it fast. The balance drops. Maybe you get a low balance alert. Maybe you check your account a few days later and wince. That kind of loss is loud and immediate, so your brain files it away as a mistake. You learn from it. You feel a little pinch of regret, and that pinch teaches you something. But idle savings never give you that pinch. There's no moment where the app tells you, hey, inflation just quietly took a bite out of your money. There's no red number. There's no notification. The balance just keeps climbing a little month after month because you keep adding to it. So your brain never gets the signal that something is wrong, because from the outside, nothing looks wrong. That's what makes this trap so different from overspending. Overspending gives you fast, visible, uncomfortable feedback. The idle money trap gives you slow, invisible, comfortable feedback. It feels like you're winning the whole time, even while you're quietly losing ground to inflation and missing out on growth you could have had elsewhere. There's another piece to this too. We're taught from a young age that saving is the responsible, grown-up thing to do. Parents praise it. Financial advice often stops at just save more. So when your balance goes up, it doesn't just feel neutral, it feels virtuous. It feels like you're doing the mature, sensible thing. That good feeling covers up the quiet math happening underneath it. So it's not that people are bad with money when they fall into this trap. It's that the trap is built to look exactly like success. The balance rises, the mind relaxes, nothing ever forces you to stop and ask what that money could have been doing instead. That's exactly why so many careful, well-meaning people fall into it for years, sometimes decades, without ever realizing it was happening at all. Now let's go a little deeper because there's a real psychological reason this trap works so well on smart, careful people. It comes down to something called loss aversion. In simple terms, our brains feel the pain of losing money much harder than the pleasure of gaining the same amount. Losing $100 stings way more than finding $100 feels good. That's not a character flaw. It's just how human brains are wired, and this one bias shapes almost every money decision we make, often without us noticing. Here's how it plays out with investing. When you put money into the market, the value moves. Some days it's up, some days it's down. You might check your account and see it drop by a few percent, and that drop feels like a loss, even if you haven't sold anything and haven't actually lost a single dollar for real. That visible, small wiggle in the numbers feels scary, because loss aversion makes every dip feel bigger and more dangerous than it really is. Now compare that to cash sitting in a savings account. The number never drops. It only goes up slowly month after month. So your brain, still running on loss aversion, reads it as completely safe. No visible drops means no visible risk, right? Except that's not true. It's just a different kind of risk, one your brain isn't built to notice. Market swings are visible and temporary. Purchasing power decay is invisible and constant. Cash doesn't dip in a scary, obvious way. It just quietly buys less every single year, guaranteed, without exception. There's no dramatic dip to react to, so there's nothing for your loss-averse brain to flag as dangerous. But the loss is still happening. It's just happening in slow motion, with no red numbers to warn you. So really, keeping all your money in cash isn't avoiding risk. It's trading one kind of risk for another. You're trading the small, visible, temporary swings of the market for a bigger, invisible, guaranteed loss in what your money can actually buy over time. Cash feels safer only because your brain is built to fear what it can see, not what it can't. This is the real trap underneath the trap. It's not that people choose cash because they did the math and cash won. It's that cash feels emotionally safer, and that feeling gets mistaken for financial safety. Once you see that difference clearly, the whole picture changes. The scary-looking option might actually be the safer one long-term, and the calm, steady-looking option might be the one quietly costing you the most. Let's make the invisible loss visible with real numbers so this stops being an abstract idea and starts being something you can actually picture. Say you save $200 a month every month for 20 years. That's a total of $48,000 of your own money put in. If you keep it all in a regular savings account earning close to nothing, and we adjust for inflation eating away at it along the way, your money might be worth around $40,000 to $45,000 in real terms after those 20 years. You put in $48,000, and after 2 decades of safe saving, you actually have less buying power than what you started with. Not because anything went wrong. That's because it sat there. Now take that same $200 a month and instead invest it, averaging around 7% a year over time. which is a normal long-term average for something like a broad index fund. After 20 years, that same $48,000 you put in could grow to somewhere around $105,000 to $110,000, even after adjusting for inflation. Sit with that gap for a second. Same person, same monthly amount, same 20 years. One path leaves you with less real value than you started with. The other path leaves you with more than double what you put in. That difference, somewhere around $60,000 to $65,000, isn't a rounding error. That's a car. That's years of rent. That's a chunk of a house deposit. And the only thing separating those two outcomes is where the money sat while time passed. Here's the part that should really bother you. The person who kept their money in savings did nothing wrong in the way we usually judge money mistakes. They didn't overspend. They didn't gamble it away. They didn't make one bad decision on one bad day. They just left it alone, thinking that was the safe, responsible choice. And it cost them tens of thousands of dollars in real value, spread quietly across 20 years, one invisible percentage point at a time. That's the true price of the idle money trap. It doesn't show up as a single painful moment. It shows up as a gap you only see once you finally do the math, usually years later, when it's harder to make up for lost time. The good news is once you see the size of that gap clearly, it becomes very hard to unsee. And that's exactly the point where most people start asking the next question. All right, so what do I actually do instead? So let's answer that question. What do you actually do instead? The first thing to understand is that spending discipline was never really the main lever here. We've been taught to obsess over not spending, like that's the whole game. Cut the coffee. Skip the takeout. Watch every dollar leave your account like it's the enemy. And sure, spending matters a little. But as we've seen with Chidi and Ifeoma, someone can be nearly perfect with not spending and still end up behind someone who spends a bit more, but actually puts their money to work. The real lever isn't how tightly you hold onto your money. It's where that money goes once you have it. That's the whole shift. Not don't spend it. Instead, don't let it sit. Money that sits in a regular savings account is money that's paused. It's not being wasted, but it's not being used either. The goal isn't to guilt yourself into saving more. The goal is to give the money you already saved somewhere better to go, somewhere it can actually grow instead of quietly shrinking against inflation year after year. Here's the simple first step, and it really is simple. Automate a percentage of your income straight into an index fund. Not a hot stock tip, not something complicated, just a broad, low-cost index fund that tracks the overall market. Set it up once, so a chunk of your paycheck moves there automatically, the same way rent or a phone bill gets paid automatically. You don't have to think about it every month. You don't have to time the market or guess when it's the right moment. You just let it happen on autopilot month after month, whether the market is up or down that particular week. Even a small percentage matters here. 5%, 10%. Whatever you can manage right now starting today beats a larger amount you plan to invest someday once things feel more stable. Time is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in these numbers, so the earliest dollars you invest have the longest to grow. This is the whole reframe in one sentence. Stop asking how much you can hold back and start asking where the money goes once you have it. Chidi held back plenty and it barely grew. Ifeoma let some money move automatically into something that could grow, and it outpaced him. That's the difference between money that waits and money that works. And the moment you automate even a small piece of your savings into an investment, you've already stepped out of the trap. So let's bring this all the way home. The mistake isn't spending too much. It's letting your savings do nothing. That's it. That's the whole thing we've been circling this whole video. Not the coffee. Not the takeout. Not the occasional impulse by that makes you wince a little the next morning. Those things matter a little, sure, but they were never the real problem. The real problem was sitting quietly in an account you thought was doing its job, while inflation nibbled away at it and growth passed it by year after year, without a single warning sign to tell you otherwise. Chidi didn't fail because he spent too freely. He failed because his money never left the starting line. Ifeoma wasn't perfect, but her money was moving the whole time, so it grew even while she was still figuring things out. That's the difference that actually counts. So here's one thing you can do right now before you even finish watching this. Open your banking app. Look at how much is sitting in your savings account beyond what you need for emergencies. Just look at the number. You don't have to move anything yet. Just see it clearly, maybe for the first time, as money that could be growing instead of standing still. Then when you're ready, take the smallest possible step. Open an account with a low-cost index fund and set up an automatic transfer, even a small one, so a slice of your income starts moving there every month without you having to think about it. That one setup done once can quietly change where you end up in 10 or 20 years. And I want to hear from you. If you're reading this and realizing your savings have basically been sitting still, not growing, not really doing anything, comment idle below. No shame in it at all. Almost everyone falls into this trap at some point because it's built to feel safe and responsible. The only real mistake is staying in it once you know better. So comment idle if that's you right now. Let's fix it together, starting today.